Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I am Eric Asher, and of course over the next hour we're going to cover all the home teams: Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans. We'll talk about Regis Prograis' fight. We'll get into Matt Reiser leaving Southeastern, heading over to Memphis. The Breakers are in the playoffs of the USFL, so we got a lot to cover, and one of the best we have in the city, Richie Mills of WGNO-TV Channel 26 Sports, is our guest. Richie, welcome back to the show. Good to have you, my friend. How are things going at 26? Tell us a little bit about all the programming over there.
Going crazy. You can catch us weeknights, 6 and 10. Weekends, you can catch me most of the time. Saturday, 6 and 10. Sunday, 5 and 10. Friday nights, 10:30 on NOLA 38, the CW. We have the WGNO Sports Zone. And, of course, tonight we have the NBA Draft, right. 7 o'clock, WGNO. You can also catch it on ESPN, but they're no fun. We're much more fun than they are, especially with all eyes being on the Pelicans right now.
That's for sure. And then, of course, man, people like us have to have multiple televisions, right? Or again, at least have a DVR to be able to tape one of the events, because of LSU tonight, obviously with the big game against Wake Forest, and of course all eyes on the Pels tonight on the draft. We'll get to the Pels in the next block. Right now we'll start off with LSU and just I want to call it a miraculous turnaround from again the last couple series in the SEC, where again they hit a little bit of a slump. But they've been dominant. They've been dominant. You look at again what they did in Baton Rouge over 2 weekends and the dominance they had there. You look at what happened now when in Omaha. I mean, losing to Wake Forest 3-2 in what was a magnificent game by both teams. You almost hated to see a loser on that game, right? As well as they played. But the pitching staff, which has been much maligned, they have come through for them. The one thing that I've been impressed about the hitting is, look, they're a gorilla ball type team, right? All year long. They have taken what the pitchers have given them. They're spraying the ball. They're not hitting for the fences, understanding again that the chuck is going to be tough to be able to hit a ball out of, especially if the wind is blowing in. That has been that to me, the discipline at the plate has been incredible. And then on top of that, again, you look at them; they've been pretty decent discipline in the field. I was telling somebody yesterday, I have a new respect for Jay Johnson. Mm-hmm. The way he has handled all of this. I mean, look, this thing could have fell apart at the end of the season, right? Right. And it didn't. They steadied the ship. Now, again, having to go to young guys like freshmen, like we've seen, the combinations of pitchers that have gotten them this far, the way he's handled his pitcher staff, just the whole situation. Again, I knew a little bit about him coming out of Arizona. Obviously, we had a lot of affection for Paul Maneri. You go back to Skip Bourbon, etc. He's been an incredible recruiter, but I wasn't really impressed last year with, again, his managerial skills. I have changed 100% when you look at it this year. It's been an impressive run for the Tigers so far, and of course tonight, the big one, right, against Wake Forest, for the opportunity to win or take it all to get into the championship series. Give me I threw a lot out there at you. Give me your synopsis on what you've seen so far, because a lot of people have this team left for dead in the last 2 series of the SEC.
So starting from jump, I think one thing about Jay Johnson, he's a tremendous recruiter and a tremendous players coach. So I think just the basis of bringing in a guy like Tommy White to support your lineup, a guy like Paul Skeens to boost your pitching staff, and then when you see just how stacked the lineup was compared to last year's regional team, I think one thing that he's done an exceptional job of this year is roster management. Throughout the course of the year, he's plug and play different pieces, seeing what sticks, and I think towards the regional you found the right lineup, and I think we talked about this too in the SEC tournament. It's sort of a consolation prize for LSU baseball in the sense that you're playing for Omaha, you're playing for a national championship. SEC tournaments are great, but that's not the ultimate goal. So I think the repetition that a young, inexperienced pitching staff could have gotten in a postseason environment against top-tier teams in the SEC was going to pay dividends for them, and you're seeing it happen right now for them. Their ERA right now is below 3 as a whole staff, and that's with Skeens on as well, which during the year was north of 4. So in that regard, coach's ability to plug and play players, get the right lineup, the right mix of personnel in there, I think that's been huge, and he put it all together at the right time. What they're doing right now, what I think people should do if they don't, is listen to the post-game press conferences, because Jay Johnson himself will tell you in Omaha at Charles Schwab Field, you're not going to score 10 runs consistently, because that's a pitcher's park. I mean, center field was what, 413? So the fact that they've adjusted, and also these 6 o'clock games, the wind is blowing in. Last night, they found some favor in the fact that the wind was blowing to right field. And I even said to myself, if you're a left-handed hitter, swing, pull, because you're carrying the ball. Braden Joe Bear did it with an RBI. Cade Beloso, a 3-run shot to the right field fence. So again, knowing the ballpark, I think has paid off for them, because you're not going to see the 20 home runs a game. You're not going to get that. But last night they had 6 hits, 5 runs. The game before that, 8 hits, 5 runs. I think a balanced approach at the plate, not trying to hit home runs, has really benefited them, and they've sort of had to come to that realization that the way we've been playing baseball isn't going to work here in the College World Series. In regards to Wake Forest, Game 1, the 3-2 loss, Bennett Lee was Tulane's best player last year. True. He played for Team USA. So when he makes a play at the plate, I heard someone say, oh, well, Trey Morgan needs to make up for that slide. Trey Morgan got the call to run on contact on red, like he said in the post-game press conference. Bennett Lee just made a great play. Brock Wilkin made a great play. That's what you expect to see in championship level baseball. LSU was on the losing end of that stick, but the second go around, you face them, you know what to expect. And I don't want to say they were dominant, because that first inning sort of looked a little wishy-washy, but for your relievers to go 7 innings shutting out one of the top hitting groups in the country, for one of the top pitching staffs to put up 5, you doubled their ERA that night. So again, I like what I've seen from them so far. I woke up this morning, I checked the odds from Vegas. LSU's the favorite tonight. So what that tells me is we're probably going to see Paul Skeens. We're probably going to see Rhett Lauder. The two have combined for a 27-2 record, 337 strikeouts. And their ERA, both of them, is below 2. Paul Skeens, National Pitcher of the Year. Rhett Lauder, National Pitcher of the Year semi-finalist. These two guys are on everyone's Major League draft board, and I think that's what we're going to get tonight. And honestly, I'm a big college baseball fan. This is what I want to see. And I think that LSU should be the favorite in this regard, because they're hitting well right now. They have an understanding of the park now. They understand their opponent, and they have the right personnel on the field.
You make a great point about the understanding of the park, because again, LSU has been in the prime time ESPN slot all week long. The shadows that come in from the sun, you have to be able to adjust to that. We've seen other teams struggle with that. We have not seen LSU struggle with that in the field. Okay, and then that's been a big problem. And just the discipline at the plate, what they've been able to do with the pitching staff. Again, you look defensively, again, they've had some errors, but for the most part, they play pretty good defensively. It has really been an all-around team effort. And what can you say about the pitching staff? Which is real. People have to realize, if they had their full complement of pitchers right now, This might not even be this. They would be in the winners bracket, probably be sitting there waiting to go with Florida right now. Okay, I mean that's how good they were. But to be able to put together Herring last night, a freshman, along with Gavin Guidry, and then Coop coming in and doing what he's doing. You look at Ack and Coop again against Tennessee in that win. We mentioned Floyd and Hurd, what they did. They pitched a masterpiece against Wake, and then of course Skeens, who again beats Tennessee, and now again going up against Louder tonight with which is Clash of the Titans, right?
Right.
This is a pitching staff that most people, I can tell you, I'm at the Jazz Fest, okay? And I got people coming up telling me that this team can't throw strikes. They'll never make it to Omaha. Look at this. Look at what has transpired now. Now they've had to go through some pitches, right? But they seem to have found a group now that look, if they get into this championship series, there's no doubt in my mind that they have a chance to beat Florida.
And I think this is another area that Jay Johnson has really thrived. You've instilled confidence in your staff by putting them out there in this situation, and it's paid off for you. Ty Floyd, for 5 innings the other night, he looked like the best pitcher in the country. You would think to yourself, well, there's the National Pitcher of the Year that LSU has, the way Ty Floyd was throwing the ball. Got a little rattled, was put in a predicament, and had to leave the game. LSU suffered because of it. Now, last night, the adjustment for Coach was you throw Javen Coleman. Okay, he survives the first inning. Take him out. You throw Blake Money. That's not going to work. You throw Griffin Herring, who I think has really come along recently. His numbers don't do him justice at all. And Griffin Herring gives you 4 2/3, strikes out 6, 7, 8 batters, and they couldn't hit him because his off-speed stuff was good. And again, Ackenhausen, miraculous. But we knew he was capable of doing that because last year he was playing here at Delgado. That was the last college baseball start he's had. So again, instilling confidence. Mike Silva from Nichols said it best. If you have an average player and you give him all the confidence in the world, he becomes a great player. Now, if these players have no confidence, you're going to get the result that we saw towards the end of the year in the SEC schedule. So again, when you instill confidence in players that have talent, they're going to produce for you right now. And in a pitcher's ballpark, I think that makes it even better. In regards to knowing the field, I think the box sort of emulates in regards to like the shadows and stuff because Josh Pearson never takes those sunglasses off. And that's from playing in Baton Rouge where the shadows can differentiate. And I think in Omaha you see the same thing. And you've seen people that don't abide by those rules. They've suffered the Wake Forest outfielder on that Trey Morgan oppo hit. So again, I think Jay Johnson's ability to instill confidence in this pitching staff has truly allowed them to thrive in this environment. And now they've put that confidence that you put in them has put you in a position now where you're still competing for a national championship.
The New Orleans metropolitan area has been a big part of, again, LSU's move through, again, the College World Series. Talk about high school guys coming out of Louisiana, coming out of the New Orleans area that have really made an impact.
Trey Morgan's probably been their best, most consistent. Why they bunt him last night, I don't know. But he's been your most consistent hitter at the plate. He's also a phenomenal fielder. So again, that performance in itself, what he's able to do, he saves you outs, he gets you hits, he produces at the plate. Cade Beloso's really been the spark, I think, of this lineup. John Curtis product. Dude's built like a linebacker, will hit it 500 feet if you let him. So I think the contribution from him, 15 home runs, 45 plus RBIs, on a year when we didn't even know if he was going to crack the lineup. So I think that's been great in itself. Will Helmers, haven't seen much of him, but again, he's still in the pitching staff. He's an option. You can see him at any point. I just think that the talent here is second to none. And I think that if you give it an opportunity, it shows that it can pay off dividends on the highest level. I mean, even on the college level, a guy like Bennett Lee, who did technically play in New Orleans, he's the catcher for the top team in the nation. So there's talent that is here, talent that can be developed here and that comes out of here.
When you look at the road to get to a championship series, if they can beat Wake Forest tonight, it's been a difficult one. Look, you got to beat Tennessee twice, okay? And Tennessee is one of the better programs in the SEC. You beat them 2 out of 3 during the regular season. That is a tough task. Then you've got to play Wake Forest 3 times to be able to get into a championship series. This bracket has been the most difficult bracket. I don't want to say Florida got an easy ride, but Florida got an easier ride than, again, either Wake Forest or LSU.
They did. And I should have mentioned Braden Jobert as well, who's been also a monster at the plate. But you have the top 2 pitching staffs in the country here in Tennessee, and you have Wake Forest as well. So again, I think facing Tennessee twice, facing their dudes twice, you sort of get a good preview of what you're going to get with Wake Forest. Again, the top pitching staff in the country, 2.82 ERA. They've only allowed 209 runs all year. Just for context, LSU's only allowed 305.
Right.
So again, I think by facing Tennessee twice, you've prepped yourself as a lineup for these elite pitching staffs that are littered with major league prospects.
Let's talk about tonight. Skeens versus Lauder. I said Clash of the Titans. I think that's an that is a great description of what we're going to see tonight. Skeens has been unbeatable. Okay, Lauder's been one of the best pitchers in college baseball. How do you think this plays out tonight?
So I've said that LSU's strength of schedule and the fact that they play in the SEC has really benefited Paul Skeens in a sense, because his only 2 losses in his 18 appearances are against SEC programs. So Rhett Lauder with the ACC, yeah, the ACC had a little bit of representation late in the season, but I think the level of competition's been so different. It's kind of like in football in a sense when you see Notre Dame make the college football playoff, you're just like, yeah, but what's their competition look like throughout the course of the year? Paul Skeens has pitched at an elite level against elite competition. Rhett Lauder's pitched great against good competition. So I think that LSU's lineup has seen a Rhett Lauder before at some point in the SEC. I don't think that Wake Forest lineup has seen a guy like Paul Skeens. So again, I think that's why Vegas has sort of tilted the odds in LSU's favor if Skeens is on the mound, because he's so overpowering when he's on the mound. The dude can pump 100 miles per hour 30-plus times over the course of a game. Rhett Lauder, yeah, he can reach a ceiling of 97, but he's more of an off-speed guy. His fastball kind of has a sink to it. His changeup has been his most elite pitch. He's got a good slider. So again, I think that's something that LSU has seen before throughout the course of the year. I just don't think that Wake has seen a Paul Skeens.
When you look at the number of pitches that he has thrown, going back to the Baton Rouge Regional, Super Regional, and then of course in Omaha, coming back on 4 days rest, which is something unusual for him. How do you think that affects him going forward tonight?
I don't think he would pitch a complete game, because again, in the back of your mind, you have to be saying to yourself, if we win and we really want to win a national championship against Florida, whose lineup, their 9-hole hitter, I think has 3 home runs in the College World Series. So in the back of your mind, you have to say to yourself, how much can we use him tonight and keep him available for that series? And again, a lot of that's up to him. You got to ask him, what's your body looking like? You know, I mean, how are you feeling right now? What's your say in this? So I think the human element in that, you have to let really Skeens be the deciding factor, because, you know, he's got a lot of money waiting for him in the Major League Baseball draft. But at the same time, how bad do you want to win a national championship? So I don't think you'll see Skeens go a complete game tonight. I think you'll see at some point Thatcher Hurd, who was working out in the bullpen last night. I think you'll see him come on a little bit earlier than you might like, but I think that's saving him for Florida.
See, that's what I was going to ask you, because again, when you look at, let's just say they win, you're probably coming back with Floyd, and I was thinking Floyd Hurd in game 1, right? Game 2, I guess you're looking at maybe, you know, would you come back with? I mean, Herring would be hard to come back with, right? Skeens you want for your championship game if necessary, but you may have to, you know, you may have to do a few innings, you know, to maybe win this thing in game 2. How do you think the pitching staff sets up for them now with, again, using so many arms, you know, or really to get to that point, because coming out of the loser bracket?
I think the blessing in disguise here is that you saw, okay, I can throw Ackenhausen in the mix. Okay, Riley Cooper's going to be reliable for me. Griffin Herring's going to be there. Javen Coleman's pitched in that environment. Give him a chance to come out. Blake Money, he's pitched in that environment. Give him a chance to make up for it. I think the unsung hero here that no one's really talking about is the response that Gavin Guidry had last night. Because again, his first pitch and only pitch against Tennessee was taken 2-run shot. But then last night you got runners on the corners, you got the top home run hitter in the country up at the plate, and you strike him out looking. So again, I think the confidence that you built up in Guidry makes him available and a viable option for them in the championship series. It's going to be a committee approach. Just depends on how long Skeens is on that mound tonight.
All right, before, as we wrap it up, what's it going to take for LSU to beat Wake Forest tonight?
Got to hit the ball. Got it. You have to make Rhett Lauder work for everything. The hitting in this game is going to be critical. You have to, Paul Skeens is going to get his numbers. You have to assume that. You have to hit the ball. 6 runs has been the most runs they've scored in the College World Series. You need more than that. You need the kill shot, and you need it early.
Yeah, well, again, I think everyone's confidence is boosted by having the Skeens on the mound tonight.
And I think, I said this earlier, I think Jordan Thompson and Tommy White, they're due. And I think this is the night you get that from them.
Beautiful. Richie Mills, Channel 26 Sports, is our guest. We're going to take an early break here. When we come back, we'll jump in the Pelicans. It's draft night tonight. So much, again, swirling around Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson off the court. Brandon Ingram possibly, again, the apple of the Charlotte Hornets' eye if a deal would be made. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the possibility of who they may go after if they do not make a trade. And then, of course, we'll talk about Saints, Regis Prograis. We'll get into Matt Reiser, also the Breakers, as well as some other topics in our second half of the program. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Richie Mills of WGNO-TV Sports is our guest. Don't move.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Richie Mills of Channel 26 Sports is our guest. All right, we go to the Pelicans, draft night tonight. Normally, everybody would be tuning into Channel 26 tonight for the draft and keeping their eyes on that. There's going to be a little split screen for a lot of people with LSU on, but nevertheless, Pels are slated to pick 14th overall in the first round. The big story for the last 2.5 weeks has been Zion off the floor. And then, of course, the possibility of, again, the Pelicans dangling him or, again, maybe a Brandon Ingram out there for a trade. It is said that David Griffin is in love with Scoot Henderson, who will be the second or third overall pick. Most people believe probably the third overall pick because, again, LaMelo Ball resides in Charlotte. But Portland is in the midst of possibly, again, dismantling their team, so who knows what's going to happen there. Let's start with the possibility of trading the Big Two. I'm on the record of saying that, first of all, there are no, I want to put this out, and I'm sure you would agree with me because we know, there are no secrets, okay, when you're a professional athlete. And I'm talking about within the organization. The organization has security personnel, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, it doesn't matter. And they know what their players do after the games. They're on the road. They know what their players are doing. Okay, they know. They probably maybe not know intimately what relationships are about, but they know pretty much. Again, who's hanging out with who. Okay, so there are no surprises to the Pelicans about all this off the court stuff with Zion. And I wanted to make that clear to the audience on my TV show and also the radio show, because if you think they're surprised by what's going on, then you're not paying attention. They know what's happening. So, to me, the question is pretty simple. Is the organization to the point where they are fed up with Zion Williamson? They feel like he's not going to mature, that again, that he's not paying attention to his body, he's not doing the things that you need to be a professional, and that they're willing to be able to walk away from maybe a once-in-a-generational player in the first year of his max deal? Or is it a situation where, again, they understand what they may have, and they feel like, again, that we have to at least give it one more year? Brandon Ingram, 2 years left on his deal, about $70 million total. There's a 15% trade kicker on his deal that a lot of people aren't talking about. So if you trade Brandon Ingram, there's money coming out of that. Now, is that Pelicans going to pay that 15% trade kicker? Or are the other teams going to do that? And then there's a school of thought here is, again, that if, Brandon Ingram, when he was healthy, was one of the best players in the NBA. So and you weren't willing to be able to trade him last year for Kevin Durant. So if you're not willing to trade him for Kevin Durant, why would you be willing to put him in a deal for Scoot Henderson? So a lot of national talk out there about the Pelicans shopping their two stars. I got to be honest with you, Richie, I don't think they're trading their stars tonight.
No, I don't. I think this is a quiet night. I think the speculation is about the peak of what we're going to see here. When I think about Brandon Ingram, no way. There is no way I am parting ways with him. Not only is he a 25-5-5 guy when healthy,
right?
He's the leader of this team, clear cut. And you can see what he can do to affect the game in so many different facets when he's healthy, when he's clicking, when everything's going. He's been more available than your marquee max player that you need on the court. I think there are so many pros and cons with Zion Williamson that make me feel like, sure, you should trade him, sure, you shouldn't. And the fact that you should. The problems are starting to outweigh the production now. We're getting to that point where off-the-court issues are kind of giving the Pelicans a bad PR rep. He's not available. He's missed north of 200 games. He's only played 114. And then it just feels like it's a distraction. While the team itself is making a run in the postseason, trying to get into the play-in, everyone wants to talk about Zion.
Right.
When is he coming back? Right. Is he going to be available? Was he practicing today? Not the fact that what the team itself was doing, which I thought was a huge distraction during the course of the year, because again, I'm like, he's overshadowing their accomplishments.
Right.
And you don't talk about a Trey Murphy because you want to know when Zion's coming back. You don't talk about Herb Jones' big point output because you want to know when Zion's coming back. So again, the problems are starting to outweigh the production. You can still get some kind of value for him. I just think that, like I told you on the radio show, no one's living in a cave.
Right.
Everyone else sees what he's about right now. Sometimes he's not available. You don't know when he's going to be available. You don't know what his source of recovery looks like, and you don't know. You really just don't know. There's more question marks than there are answers. So, in that sense, I can understand why you're shopping him, why you keep him. That's 26 on 60% shooting a night, guaranteed.
Right.
Generational talent, like you just said. The Pelicans were the top team in the West when he was healthy.
Yes.
And again, he's just an intimidating force. And when you get him, Ingram, McCollum, Valanciunas, when you're playing with that bunch, you got Murphy now, it looks great. It's the best in the NBA. And we saw that in December. Now, what stinks about this whole situation is the fact that you're going to have to give up assets. I spoke with NBA front office insider Bobby Marks earlier this week. He spoke about the hesitation in dealing a player like Zion because any trade to move up in the top three, you're going to give up marquee players.
Right. That's
going to be your Ingrams, your Williamsons. But then again, people are going to want your Murphys. They're going to want your Jones. They're going to want Valanciunas in a sense. But those are guys you don't want to part ways with. Those are key pillars in what you're trying to build now with the Pelicans. So again, there's hesitation. And Bobby Marks even said it best, and this is a quote that's really stood with me, is, what if this is the year? What if this is the year he pieces it all together? That's what the NBA in its entirety wants to see, is just one clean year from Zion Williamson. What if this is that year and you trade him away?
Right. Well, I don't want to say they're catering to him, but let's face it, he's won the battle with Aaron Nelson. Okay, Aaron Nelson is either gone or he's going to be in a lesser role. I don't know what to read into the Teresa Witherspoon thing this week, except to maybe think that that's been his shoulder to cry on. That's been the person he's been able to go to when things aren't going well, and maybe they feel like maybe he needs to man up a bit, okay? Or maybe Teresa Witherspoon looking for an opportunity to be a head coach. She almost got the Phoenix job, the Phoenix Mercury job last year, and turned it down. Is this a situation where they're tired of the off-the-court drama, not just what's going on in his personal life, but with his family that was supposed to be this great support system that seems to be butting heads with the organization constantly? Or is it a situation where, as you said and Bobby Marks said, man, you trade him, he gets a healthy year, and then he's an MVP candidate, and then you're David Griffin, the guy that traded Zion Williamson.
Yep.
It is a tough spot to be in. Which is why, if I was David Griffin, I'm not doing anything this year. I'm going to let Brandon. I'm running it back with Brandon. I'm running it back with Zion. I'm making sure that Zion stays up to his contract. I have the weight clause in the contract. I have the ability to fine him. I have the ability to take money from his pocket. Okay. With Brandon, I have to have a coming to Jesus moment with him and saying, "Guy, look, you're my leader. You need to play through injury. You can't nurse an injury for 30 games on something that somebody would have felt like it was a stub toe. You got to be at, and that's when. And I'm taking a hard look at what they do this year. And if it doesn't work out, they're still great assets. You can still move them at some point. And Brandon will have an expiring contract coming up, so you have to be able to make sure, again, that you're either going to double down on him with, again, the new CBA and the expanded max deals that they're getting now, 45 to 50 plus million a year, okay, for a small market team. Or at that point, you use it to get assets, you blow it up, and you start all over again. I know New Orleans doesn't want to hear that, but that's probably the direction that I think they're going. And I think that's the prudent way to do it.
The only way you trade Zion, and this is strictly my opinion, is if you're getting Victor Wembanyama. If you're getting him, okay, I'm dealing Zion. Okay. If you're getting anyone but him, no way. Right. There's no trade for me in the cards.
I agree with you. I can't see Scoot Henderson, unless you're getting more than Scoot Henderson. I'm not talking about Gordon Hayward here, right? Okay. I mean, Hayward's on an expiring deal, $31 million. If you know how the NBA works, guys, trades they have to match. Right. I agree with you. I'm not looking to be able to take assets to give to throw in as a sweetener for the Zion deal. I'm looking for you to sweeten the deal to get Zion.
Right. I want Wembanyama. That's my thing. Right. If you're getting anything but him, don't do it. Portland, sure. You can get the 3 pick. You can deal Zion. You get a guy like Anthony Simons, a young emerging wing player in this game. But it's just what you're willing to give up is not what you're getting in return in this situation. So again, in that sense, trash the trade talk. If you're the front office, you straight up, you have to sit him down. You have to put everything out on the table where he can see it and be like, this is what we're doing for you. This is what you're doing for us. It's not matching up. Right. At some point, you have to grow up. I understand he's young, but in a sense, a lot more people take on a lot more responsibilities at the age of 22, 23 years old than someone that's getting paid millions of dollars to play basketball and be the face of a franchise. They are giving him every opportunity to be successful and to continue to be successful. And in my opinion, it's just not being taken advantage of.
I keep hearing C.J. McCollum. I heard him in his year-end press conference, frustrated with the young players on the roster, not maturing, spending more time in the club than the hot tub, right, on the cold tub, whatever, not preparing their bodies and getting ready for the games. And then I hear him on Russillo's podcast where he kind of takes all that back and talks about the relationship with Zion and this and that. They need, and I've said this before on this show and the radio show, they need dogs with rings, okay? They need guys that are not just tough on the court, but tough on their teammates as well. Guys that have won and know how to and can have a ring to show for it, because there is a lack of maturity on this team, and I think they've been trying to shield us from seeing that. But I think that when you look at the end result over the last 2 years, a lot of that is you're bringing in guys that are young, you're hoping that they grow up, and the main guy that you're hoping to grow up isn't growing up.
Right. I think I had this conversation in the newsroom last night. I said a guy like Draymond Green just opted out. The guy that called your team soft, is an option. Right. I'm picking him up. Right. I'm calling him. I'm making some concerted effort there because
I agree.
You're not paying him to put up a triple-double every night. No. You're paying him to toughen everyone up. Exactly. You're paying him to be a leader, a voice, and to really be the enforcer on
Jay
your
Crowder's
team.
Another guy like that.
Right, and Udonis Haslem has been the perfect example of that because the Miami Heat culture, in a sense, thrives because you have that man on payroll, on your roster. He can play, but he's not going to, but he's there to keep everyone in check. You need that on this roster.
I agree. They're missing that. They brought Garrett Temple in thinking he was going to be that guy. Now, by the way, Garrett Temple needs to be waived by the 30th of June, or again, his $5.4 million contract will be guaranteed. I look for him to be part of any deal tonight. If they're going to make a deal, try to move up, whatever, he's going to be a throw-in. He'll be a guy that, again, will be after the draft, if you're dealing, they'll make a deal there, because I don't see them, again, picking up his $5.4 million option with the tax implications that they'd be dealing with. But you're right, and I agree with you. They need maturity in that locker room on top of shooting and an athletic big, which leads me to my next question. If they stay at 14 tonight, what are they looking for? To me, a shooter is there's going to be shooters at 14. Right. There's going to be guys that have been in school for 3 and 4 years that can just downright just shoot the basketball. And to me, that's got to be your priority. Or are you looking at, I don't want another college kid coming in. I got to get a vet. And if that's the case, again, are you looking to move this pick?
I would move the pick for a vet. I would move any assets, not key players, for a veteran on this team. Now, if they stay at 14, if a guy like Derek Lively from Duke's available, another talented big, but do you really need that if you have Valanciunas, Jackson Hayes, Willie Hernangomez.
Well, I want to ask you about that because I think all three centers are on the block here.
Right.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
But I think that in that sense, you sort of stay away from the bigs. The one thing that I would notice is that when you have a guy like McCollum who's having a slow shooting night, when Murphy's not being aggressive and Herb Jones has to be your high point guy, you need a wing that can obviously defend, but someone that can just go get a bucket.
Right.
And so in my mind, I'm thinking Jordan Hawkins, just won a national championship at UConn.
Heck of a player.
Keontae George from Baylor, Big 12 Freshman of the Year. I'm thinking of talent like that you can literally just plug in. They're going to play defense. They're going to hold up their own on that end. But if you need a bucket, they're going to get it. Big guards, athletic wings that can just shoot the ball, especially on a night when, like I said, McCollum's not doing it for you and Murphy's not being aggressive, because that was an issue. That was a conversation throughout the course of the year, is why aren't we seeing this consistent production from Trey Murphy? And Willie Green himself would come out post-game and say he just wasn't aggressive.
Right. Let's talk about the center position, because I think that's a position in flux. A lot of talk about wanting to move off Valanciunas. $15 million expiring contract for him. It looks, again, maybe appetizing toward maybe the trade deadline, but could be a guy that could be moved tonight, okay? Hernangomez was not happy about his playing time here in New Orleans last year. Again, he played well in the Euros, thought he was going to come in, dominate the NBA. He's got a $2 million team option. Whether they bring him back or not is up in the air. He could be part of trade. I do not see Jackson Hayes coming back. $8 million qualifying offer. Again, he's the athletic big they thought they were getting, and he just another case of immaturity, not living up to, again, what his draft status was when you look at it. He's got all the talent in the world, just doesn't have the maturity to be able to put it together. So you put that along with 9 first-round picks over the next 5 years, I got to believe that they're in the market for another center. Now, you look at there's multiple centers available that in the draft. You mentioned Lively out of Duke. Is that where they go, or is it, again, I got to go back to just the need for a shooter?
Well, in a sense, I looked at mock drafts, and you sort of don't understand how deep drafts are until you see some of the top players in the country that are going late in the second round, like a Drew Timme.
Right.
So in a sense, like, you get a fundamental big like Drew Timme in the second round, you don't have to reach. You can trade, you can package picks with a guy like Hernangomez, with a guy like Jackson Hayes. You can send them somewhere else. I'm sort of hesitant to trade Valanciunas because, that was kind of your Iron Man throughout the course of the year.
It's a double-double machine.
Right. At points, you had to lean on him. So I'm not entirely ready to part ways with him yet. But if there is a big veteran prospect, one of the top stars in the game, I jokingly said on our program, I said, I'm calling Philly and I'm going to say, hey, I'll give you JV some first-round picks. What's Joel Embiid worth right now? So I think in that sense, if you're going to get a high-value center, someone that an organization is willing to part ways with, then you put JV in the talks. But that's been your most consistent piece throughout the course of the year, so I'm keeping him.
Well, Miles Turner's 40 years over $2 million, $40 million over 2 years. Buddy Hield, $18 million expiring contract. That's Indiana. Indiana's looking to maybe move off these two guys. First thing I think, if I'm David Griffin, well, wait a minute, we had Hield. He was a heck of a shooter. They let him go. That was ridiculous, again, to be able to let that young guy go, especially for Boogie Cousins, who ended up being, injured. And they looked good for a while, but it just didn't last. You knew it wasn't going to last with Boogie anyway.
Right.
And then, of course, look, a lot of people in New Orleans have their hearts set on Turner for years, right? Athletic big, they can step out and shoot the three. If I'm looking to trade tonight, I'm not looking to get up to 2 or 3. I'm talking to Indiana, and I'm saying, okay, can we give you Valanciunas? Can we give you some of these 9 picks? And is there some way that we can work this out? We'll throw it, and get these 2 players, because these are 2 players that, if you brought those 2 players in, that's an immediate, that changes the face of your franchise.
Exactly.
Okay, you get your shooter, who, again, you can choose one of the best shooters in the NBA. Now, he'll be an expiring contract. You're taking a chance that he goes into free agency, you lose him. But then you've got a guy for 2 years that has been one of the better mobile centers in the NBA.
Right, you have to make up for the void that's left from a guy like Zion Williamson.
Right.
Not someone that's going to exactly mimic what he does on a basketball court, but a similar sort of skill set. You mentioned Miles Turner, the explosiveness around the rim, shot blocking ability, steps out and shoots a 3, can spread the floor, something that we sort of saw Zion do whenever he was healthy. You saw a 3-point shot that we thought was never going to come to fruition. And then a guy like Buddy Hield, it's so funny to mention Buddy Hield. He was in your building.
Right, and you let him walk.
And you let him walk, and he's proven to be be a consistent shooter, what he was at Oklahoma. So he's been what
and
you
what have
knew
you been
he
looking
was.
for since?
A consistent
Buddy Hield.
shooter. Right. So in a sense, you have a lethal shooter you can bring in that can make up for any lack of production in your backcourt, and then you have an athletic big that can make up for any void that you might have to fill if Zion's out. So that is a perfect pick because you don't need to be. Everybody wants to move up.
Right.
Everybody does, and I think that's our job to let you know that you really don't have to.
No, and I'm telling you right now. To me, I get it. 14, you're bringing another young player. It's a college player. He's got to develop everything else. But for this team, that again, the fan base, the management with David Griffin, he's got to be on a little bit of a hot seat here, right? You have to feel like again, you have to take the next step. So what do? You got assets. There are 2 players out there that fit exactly what you need, and it seems like Indiana wants to move off of them. They want picks. They want in a little bit of a rebuild here. To me, that's if I'm moving up. I'm moving there. That's where I'm. That's where I'm not looking at Scoot Henderson. I'm looking at 2 vets that I could bring in that could instantly change my roster and can make up, as you mentioned, when Zion's not there. Turner's going to help you there. Buddy Hield's going to help Trey Murphy because he's another shooter. It seems to open up everything. And look, you've drafted 2 point guards the last 2 years. I mean, what is that telling you when you draft 2 point guards the last 2 years and your GM, Vice President of Basketball Operations, is in love with another one?
Yeah, I mean, Kyra Lewis, you passed on Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony is a starter for the Orlando Magic. He's been healthy, he's been available, and he's playing extremely well. And then you also passed up on Michael Porter Jr. A couple years ago as well. So in a sense, it just it sort of feels
issues there, but
it sort of feels like there's been no-brainer picks that have just sort of fallen in their lap and they've gone in a different direction. I understand you got to trust your scouting and everything like that, but if you have a need and there's an obvious way to fill it, I just feel like that's a course of action that has not been taken. But what you sort of sense every time you talk to David Griffin, which I guess this is a prerequisite of being a general manager in this league, is they're not far off. They're not far away. And you saw that when Williamson was healthy. The only issue was your depth really wasn't doing as much for you as you needed. You get a guy like Buddy Hield and a guy like Miles Turner, you've addressed that need.
You do that, and I mean, you have to give up. You have to give up with Alan Tunis. You probably have to throw Temple in there as well, and then you give up the 14th pick, and you're probably giving up a bunch of other picks as well, right? And you may have to give up one of your players. You may have to give up an Alvarado or something. You may have to give up one of these point guards. It's not going to be easy. You know, you're giving up something. They're not giving up 2 top players for nothing. Right,
but that's why you accrue assets in a sense. I mean, if you're saving up money and you're not going to buy anything, then what's the point of having all that money in the bank?
Right. But to me, that is the direction. If I'm David Griffin, I'm going. I'm not looking for the rookie. I'm not looking to move up to get maybe the next phenom. I got 2 phenoms here right now. I'm looking to get 2 pieces that I need. I need an athletic center and I need a shooter. And I'm going to try to find those in terms of veterans rather than try to go the route of the rookies. Although again, there are some school of thought of saying, hey man, you're paying 3 guys over $33 million. You're up against the luxury tax threshold. You maybe need another guy with a low salary.
And I think that what also gets lost in this situation is if you are going to draft someone, take a 4-year guy.
Right. Well, look at Trey Murphy. Look at Herb Jones.
Right.
Look at the difference in those guys and their maturity as opposed to a Jackson Hayes and a Zion Williamson.
And Damian Lillard, who, you know, you've pieced together talks. I mean, he's a 4-year guy too. So again, there's so much value in these 4-year guys. You're not necessarily leaning on a young guy, but you're leaning on someone with a sense of maturity who's going to come in and be older than really a lot of your young players. So,
I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. And I just feel like a veteran's the right move here. I mean, we've pretty much established that a veteran's the right move.
I've been doing this for 20 years, and for 20 years I've been saying the NBA has to go to the minor league baseball, Major League Baseball format. Let a guy get drafted out of high school if he can, but if not, you don't touch him till after his 3rd year. To me, that helps college basketball. That helps the NBA. Now I know they're grooming the G League to be that place for those guys, right? Okay. But to me, that solves so many problems for the NBA and college basketball. It's the best of both worlds, and I don't know why they have not adopted that.
Even in talking with a guy like Joe Sherman, in a sense, where he was talking about Major League Baseball, drafting these guys out of high school, he said places like big conferences like the SEC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, they can basically serve as this system. That way you're in college, you're playing baseball, you're playing high-level baseball, and you're being groomed the right way. Look at Dylan Cruz, highest high school rater to come out of rated player to come out of high school. He's going to LSU, and now he's going to be a top 2 pick. So again, it's a method that's shown it can be effective, and that can be across any sport, really. It's pretty universal. The one thing I don't like about the G League is kind of like what the conversation with the Breakers has been. They're in Birmingham. I want to see them here. So if we can make that happen, that would be cool.
The other part of that is now with NIL, a college can compete with maybe again the G League or again I don't want to say the NBA, but maybe the NBA as well. Okay, to a point. We'll see again how this kind of plays out. So in closing, Pels make moves tonight? No moves.
No moves.
No moves. Okay, and I think the only move they make, if they make it, is maybe to move Valanciunas, maybe try to get a veteran, maybe to move some off to some of these picks. We'll see again how that plays out. Remember, they have 9 first-round picks over the next 5 years from Milwaukee, Los Angeles Lakers. They still have the pick swap with the Lakers, one more pick from them, and then they got multiple pick swaps with Milwaukee and their own picks. So they got a lot of first-round picks over the next 5 years. All right, well, we'll switch gears to the New Orleans Saints, which is unprecedented to have them in the third slot here for the last 2 weeks on this program. All right, minicamp, OTAs, come on, okay? Football is a physical sport. You need to have pads on. We don't know what the heck's going on. But again, on paper, once again, this team looks like it can be a playoff team. On paper, looking at the schedule, before, again, we know what all these teams are about, it looks like it's a favorable schedule. Looking at the NFC South, on paper, the Saints look like they should win the division. You were out there, you saw minicamp. Just give me your thoughts on, again, maybe some guys that stuck out in shorts, T-shirts, and a helmet.
So I hate this time of the year, just like you do. And I think Cam Jordan confirmed it all when he said, you're not going to win football games in June. So in that sense, it is kind of just like a dog and pony show out there, because you see everyone, they're on the field, they're working out, they're healthy. This will be the only time you'll ever see that. What I noticed was, obviously, Derek Carr was the headline of camp. Everybody wanted to see him at work, throwing a football. And what I noticed was, in between reps, the conversations he would have with Mike Thomas, the after practice reps with Mike Thomas, Jameis Winston in on that with him, his constant communication with receivers, I guess, in a sense, where communicating route concepts, what he likes, what they do, just the communication between new starting quarterback and playmakers is what really stood out to me, because again, the repetitions he receives right now are more valuable than they were last year for him in Vegas, in regards that it's a brand new arsenal of weapons you have to work with. And what I enjoy when you see him have success in the team drills with no pads and shorts on, but the fact that he is throwing touchdowns to Chris Olave against the defense that he doesn't really face on a normal basis. Vegas's defense last year, one of the worst in the NFL. That's a totally different change of pace right now with this talented Saints core. Joe Woods, who's been a proven winner. He's been a part of playoff teams since he was with Dennis Allen in 2014 in Oakland. So in a sense, you have a high-level defense that you're facing every day. You have a starting quarterback that's making a concerted effort to communicate, just nuances of how he likes to play football with his playmakers. That's what stood out to me. I'm not making a big deal out of anything I saw out there because, again, no pads, no hitting. But I think the repetitions that Derek Carr got while he was out there, the fact that the Saints have made a complete effort to sort of ease him into this system by getting a Gruden out there just to serve as sort of an analyst. I just think everyone's doing their due diligence to make sure this works. And I think that's what we've sort of seen so far throughout OTAs and camp.
Gosh, it's hard to know until you really get in the trenches with the pads on again what this team is going to be, because this team is going to be as good as their defensive and offensive lines. They've been often injured on the offensive line. Defensive line, again, you've got a complete turnover with Shepard and Saunders coming in. You draft Foskey. You draft the first rounder, Brian Brzee. So, again, you got that there. I'm still of the opinion they could really use still, I guess, a bona fide pass rusher veteran with the $14 million they have to spend. I also think they need some depth at linebacker, in case someone goes down. I know they like Jackson, the rookie from last year, but I still think you need a veteran there. Some people like the wide receiver room. I'm going to hold my judgment out on that because you got a couple of journeymen in there that you brought in Washington and Edwards, right? And guys that had a little bit of success but couldn't sustain it. Maybe you could use a veteran there. I think they're solid at tight end. I think they're solid at running back. I think quarterback, they're solid there. I think the offensive line right now, it comes down to health. Okay, I mean, can Penning play a full season? What are you going to get? What are you going to get out of your guards, which again has been a thing in flux. I think you're good at center and right tackle. So I think there's still some question marks on this team. Okay, I think the defensive backfield at safety, with Marcus May going out, and then what do you do there? What are your thoughts? You saw this team at training camp, at mini camp and OTAs. Is there room for, with the money they have left to spend, to bring in a few veterans at key spots to be able to maybe backfill those spots?
I think just based off what you saw last year, you have to take it upon yourself to make these moves. In camp, typically when you start to see that revolving door of free agents sort of hit the ground running. But when you have 12 different offensive linemen that start for you, and it affects your run game, it affects your pass blocking. Andy Dalton couldn't stay upright. Alvin Kamara could hardly run the ball. The only way he was having any production is if you threw to him. And then on the defensive front, not only the guys that you lost in that front seven, the Shai Tuttles, the Anyamadas, just that group in itself, you beef them up as well as you can, but they're still relatively young, and there's no, outside of Cam Jordan, there's really no dude on that line. So I think in a sense you take it upon yourself to bring in another free agent, and you say, oh, another defensive lineman. Well, last year they had the worst individual win rate on pass rushes in the entire NFL. That's why they drafted Ryan Brzee. That's why they brought in Foskey, because there's a need there. You're not pressuring the quarterback. You only forced 14 turnovers. I'm looking in recent years where they're forcing 20-plus. Defense is one of the best in the league. Granted, they came on late last year, but that was against the NFC South. I want to see them play well against the top-tier teams, which ultimately everyone wants to say Super Bowl. Everyone wants to say Super Bowl, but when I see that, I'm sitting there thinking, you got to make the playoffs first. You haven't done that in 2 years. You're in a favorable position to do that. Sure, you can win the NFC South, but if you're not playing high-level football, you're going to be one and done in the playoffs.
If you can't stop the run, you're not going to win in New Orleans.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, that's the way that defense is set up. On offense, if you can't run the ball, you're not going to be able to be successful. Now, I understand you got Carr. He's maybe a little bit longer thrower than Breeze was. You hope he's got a lot of those Breeze attributes we're seeing in press conference. I hope that's on the field. But it comes down to the trenches, and I think that's where Dennis Allen really has to take a hard look. And I think you got to be honest with yourself, okay? On again, how talented you are, and if you have an opportunity to upgrade those positions, you do it. Ceiling for this team?
11. I think 11 wins. I think playoffs for sure. Are they going to contend for a Super Bowl? I don't believe that yet. But there's that possibility they could. I think the fact that Derek Carr, you have him coming in getting high-value reps against a high-value defense, something he's never had over the course of his career. He's in a stable organization, something he's never had over the course of his career. I think those things will allow him to really grow his game because, again, you don't have to force it all the time. You don't have to check down to the running back all the time. And if you do that here, that's really not a bad option. But it's not the sexy option.
But that's been his reputation.
Right. But again, he even said himself, if that's what I feel is the right play, that's the play I'm going to make. And with a guy like Kamara, who you don't know if he's going to be there, it's really health. Health will steer this whole ship forward or into the ground.
I agree.
And I think we've seen that over the course.
And that's been the problem for both the Pelicans and the Saints for the last few years. And that's one of the reasons why they've got to do something different this year. Okay, they got to figure out what they're doing wrong. These soft tissue injuries are keeping guys out for so long. All right, we got about 4 minutes left in the program. I want to get through a couple things. You live in Hammond, America. You know SLU pretty well. I was shocked to hear Matt Reiser, that was relieved of his duties, fired. He's the new head coach at Memphis on the American Athletic Conference. What are your thoughts there? When
I talked to J.R. Teagues at Bobby Barbier's introductory press conference, he said, quote, it was the most difficult decision he's had to make. This was J.R. Teague's guy. This was your top assistant. He took over a program that was your baby in a sense, still is, and he brought it to a championship level that you don't normally see from Southland Conference schools. I mean, they won 3 Southland titles, 4 NCAA tournament appearances, the at-large bid for the first time in what was crazy. 2016, they were a 2 seed in the Baton Rouge Regional. I think people don't understand that now, but high-level baseball, just a guy that got caught on the wrong end of injuries. I mean, this was the lowest win total he's had since he took over. They won 42 games in 2015. They didn't make the tournament that year because strength of schedule. So since that year, he's scheduled so strong. They've played the top competition in the country. They beat #1 Ole Miss last year. I don't think people understand that Southeastern does not shy away from anyone, and that's what Nichols did last year, and look what it did for them. The only difference between this year and last year is that injuries were the same. They just didn't win a conference championship. When he was let go, I was surprised because, again, it's the Southland. I mean, it's so competitive.
It is competitive.
So
it's one of the best baseball conferences out there.
And they're bringing in high-value head coach. Blake Dean, LSU, the national champion. Lance Berkman is the coach at Houston Christian, an up-and-coming program. Mike Silva just won a conference title. Louisiana Tech, they hosted a regional. I just think that the circumstances surrounding his firing were out of his control. And I think it was maybe less about win totals. But at the same time, you can sort of see the digression of the win totals and sort of understand and pinpoint that. But in a sense, you got fired, you got promoted. You just went to Memphis. And you're a Tulane guy. You basically made it to the College World Series in the with Tulane. So again, you get a promotion. Memphis got a great coach. Memphis is a great program. They're a winning program. Their coach just took a job at Missouri. So again, he's going to be a problem. We're going to see him all the time playing Tulane. And with all those other schools leaving outside of East Carolina who's staying, Memphis is going to be a baseball force. So I think Matt Reiser is one of the most genuine coaches that I've ever met. He's a great guy. He's a great human being. And players notice that. And I think that you give him a position like Memphis, he's going to thrive.
I agree. We got about a minute left. Breakers in the playoffs against Birmingham. That's a national televised game on Sunday. They split the season series. 1 minute. We'll talk about the Breakers.
Offense has to score points. McLeod Bethel-Thompson has been the difference in the sense that he has not turned the ball over at the rate that Kyle Sloter was last year, but their defense is playing great. Their defense has carried them so far this year. I think McLeod Bethel-Thompson has to step it up. The offense has to step it up. Sure, the weapons aren't there. People are dialed in on Wes Hills, who's one of the top rushers in the USFL. The offense has to show up. Can they do it? Absolutely. This is not the same Birmingham team as last year, but whoever wins the South Division, they're going to win the whole thing.
There you go. Regis Prograis defended his title in the Smoothie King Center over the weekend. I didn't see the fight, but I read some of the boxing analysts said it was the worst fight of the year. It wasn't a good showing for Regis, even though he won in a split decision.
It was tough to watch. He said hometown jitters played a factor, which in the first round he sort of got a knockdown. Third round he knocked down Zarilla. But that was where the highlights really ended. It was just kind of holding on for dear life at that point. Either one or two things are going to happen. It's going to get worse or it's going to get better. And with a guy like him who trains at such a high intensity, 30 fights, 29-1, 25, or 24 by knockout, 5 by decision, I have faith that it's going to get better.
He is a great ambassador for this city. It's just too bad that, again, that type of fight, and you mentioned it, that was a fill-in guy, right? That wasn't the original fighter that was on the card. That was a fill-in guy, and it kind of showed.
Right, especially fighting at the Smoothie King Center. That's a pretty big stage.
It really
I
is.
mean, he's fought in the city, but he's never fought there.
Right, no doubt. Richie, always thank you so much for your time, not just on this program, but on the radio show. Love having you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
There he goes. Richie Mills, again, WGNO Channel 26 Sports. All right, there's a QR code on your screen. Thanks so much for watching tonight. There's so many ways to catch our program. Hey, pick your favorite time and then set your DVR and you'll never miss Inside New Orleans Sports. The QR code will take you either to my website or the WLAE-TV YouTube page, so make sure you click that with your phone. You catch me on the radio, 106.1 FM Nash Icon. That is weekdays 4 to 6. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, again, the Nash Icon website, iHeartRadio app, and also TuneIn Radio app, our digital platforms. And, of course, our podcast is on all major podcasting platforms. Also want to thank our underwriters who make this show possible. Please support our underwriters. Also, the WLE production staff who do a fantastic job producing our program. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Logan Rafia, also Alex Chacon, and our interns who are working with us. And that is Danielle Wick and Jonathan Whitehead. Is that what it is? Jonathan Whitehead. There you go. I'm Eric Asher for Richie Mills. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.